Hello and welcome to today's session on theories and principles of corporate governance. I'm Dr. Maruf Ahmed Mir, PhD in financial markets and MBA in finance and accounts from AMU Aligarh. And at present, I am associated with Asian Business School, Noida as Associate Professor in Finance and Accounts. Dear students, let's start with understanding the concept of corporate governance. Now, what is corporate governance? Corporate governance is a system of rules, practices and processes by which a firm is directed and controlled. Corporate governance essentially involves balancing the interest of a company's many stakeholders such as shareholders, senior management executives, customers, suppliers, financiers, the government and the community. Since corporate governance provides the framework for attaining a company's objectives, it encompasses practically every sphere of management, from action plans and internal controls to performance measurement and corporate disclosure. Understanding corporate governance. Governance refers specifically to the set of rules, controls, policies and resolutions put in place to direct corporate behavior. A board of directors is pivotal in governance. Proxy advisors and shareholders are important stakeholders which can affect governance. Corporate governance is a key component of community and investor relations. For instance, Apple Incorporation's investor relations site outlines its corporate leadership, its executive team and board of directors. It provides corporate governance information including its committee charters and governance documents such as bylaws, stock ownership guidelines and article of incorporation. Most companies strive to have exceptional corporate governance. For many shareholders, it is not enough for a company merely to be profitable. It also must demonstrate good corporate citizenship throughout the environmental awareness, ethical behavior, and sound corporate governance practices. Benefits of corporate governance. Number one, good corporate governance creates transparent rules and controls, provides guidance to leadership, and aligns the interest of shareholders, directors, management, and employees. Number two, it helps build trust with investors, the community, and the public officials. Number three, corporate governance can provide investors and stakeholders with a clear idea of a company's direction and business integrity. Number four, it promotes long-term financial viability, opportunity, and returns. Number five, it can facilitate the raising of capital. Number six, good corporate governance can translate to rising share prices. Number seven, it can lessen the potential for financial loss, waste, risk, and corruption. Number eight benefit, it is a game plan for resilience and long-term success. Principles of corporate governance. The principles of corporate governance are: number one is accountability. Accountability means to be answerable and be obligated to take responsibility for one's actions. By doing so, two things can be ensured: that the management is accountable to the board of directors, that the board of directors is accountable to the shareholders of the company. This principle gives confidence to shareholders in the business of the company that in case of any unfavorable situation, the persons responsible will be held in charge. Number 2, fairness. Fairness gives shareholders an opportunity to voice their grievances and address any issues related to the violation of shareholders' rights. This principle deals with the protection of shareholders' rights, treating all the shareholders equally without any personal favoritism, and granting redressal of any violations of rights. Number 3, transparency. Providing clear information about a company's policies and practices and the decisions that affect the rights of the shareholder represent transparency. This helps to build trust and a sense of togetherness between the top management and the stakeholders. It ensures accurate and full disclosure timely on material matters like financial condition, performance, ownership. Number 4, independence. Independence means the ability to make decisions freely without being unduly influenced. Decisions should be made freely without having any personal interest in the company. It ensures the reduction in the conflict of interest. Corporate governance suggests the appointment of independent directors and advisors so that decisions are taken responsibly without influence. Number 5, social responsibility. Apart from the 4 main principles, there is an additional principle of corporate governance. Company social responsibility obligates the company to be aware of social issues and take actions to address them. In this way, the company creates a positive image in the industry. The first step towards corporate social responsibility is to practice good corporate governance. Number 6, corporate governance in India. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs (MCA) and Securities and Exchange Board of India (SEBI) is responsible for corporate governance initiatives in India. The corporate sector of India faced major changes in the 1990s after liberalization. In the 1900s, SEBI regulated corporate governance in India through various laws like the Securities Contract Regulation Act 1956, Securities and Exchange Board of India Act 1992, and the Depositories Act of 1996. In Feb 2000, SEBI established the first formal regulatory framework for corporate governance in India owing to the recommendations of the Kumar Mangalam Birla Committee. It was undertaken to improve the standards of corporate governance in India. This came to be known as Clause 49 of the Listing Agreement. A major corporate governance initiative was undertaken in 2002 when the Naresh Chandra Committee on Corporate Audit and Governance furthered their recommendations addressing multiple governance issues. MCA and the Government of India have set up multiple organizations and charters like the Confederation of Indian Industry (CII), National Foundation of Corporate Governance (NFCG), Accountants of India, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India (ICAI), theories of corporate governance. There are many theories of corporate governance which addressed the challenges of governance of firms and companies from time to time. The corporate governance is the process of decision making and the process by which decisions are implemented in large business is known as corporate governance. There are various theories which describe the relationship between various stakeholders of the business while carrying out the activity of the business. We will discuss the following theories of corporate governance. Number 1, agency theory. Number 2, stewardship theory. Number 3, resource dependency theory. Number 4, stakeholder theory. Number 5, transaction cost theory. And number 6, political theory. First, agency theory. What is an agency? An agent is a person who works for or on behalf of another. Thus, an employee is an agent of the company. But agency extends beyond employee relationship. Independent contractors are also agents. Advertising firms, lawyers, and accountants are agents of the clients. The CEO of a company is an agent of the board of directors of the company. A grocery store is an agent of the manufacturer of corn chips sold in the store. Thus, the agency relationship extends beyond the employees into many different economic relationships. The entity, person, or corporation on whose behalf an agent works is called a principal. Agency theory is the study of incentives provided to agents. Incentives are an issue because agents need not have the same interest and goal as the principal. Employees spend billions of hours every year browsing the web, emailing friends, and playing computer games while they are supposedly working. Attorney hired to defend a corporation in a lawsuit have an incentive not to settle to keep the billing flowing. Such behavior would violate the attorney's ethics required. Automobile repair shops have been known to use substandard or used replacement parts and bills for new high quality parts. These are all examples of a conflict in the incentives of the agent and the goals of the principal. Agency theory focuses on the cost of providing incentives. When you rent a car, an agency relationship is created. Even though a car rental company is called an agency, it is most useful to look at the renter as the agent because it is renter's behavior that is the issue. The company would like the agent to treat the car as if it were her own car. The renter, in contrast, known in its her own car and often drives accordingly. Introduction of agency theories. Agency theories arise from the distinction between the owners, shareholders of a company or an organization designated as the principals, and the executives hired to manage the organization called the agent. Agency theory argues that the goal of the agent is different from that of the principals, and they are conflicting. Johnson, Daly, and L. Standard, 1996. The assumption is that the principals suffer an agency loss, which is a lesser return on investment because they do not directly manage the company. Part of the return that they could have had if they were managing the company directly goes to the agent. Consequently, agency theory suggests financial rewards that can help incentivize executives to maximize the profit of owners. Eisenhard, 1989. Further, a board developed from the perspective of the agency theory tends to exercise strict control, supervision, and monitoring of the performance of the agent in order to protect the interest of the principal. Hillman and Dalziel, 2003. In other words, the board is actively involved in most of the managerial decisions making processes and is accountable to the shareholders. A non-profit board that operates through the lens of agency theories will show a hands-on management approach on behalf of stakeholders. Agency theory relative to corporate governance assumes a two-tier form of firm control, managers and owners. Agency theory holds that there will be some friction and mistrust between the two groups. The basic structure of the corporation, therefore, is the web of contractual relationships among different interest groups with a stake in the company. Features. In general, there are three sets of interest groups within the firm: managers, stakeholders, and creditors, such as banks. Stakeholders often have conflict with both banks and managers, since their general priorities are different. Managers seek quick profit that increase their own wealth, power, and reputation, while shareholders are more interested in slow and steady growth over time. Function. The purpose of agency theory is to identify points of conflict among corporate interest groups. Banks want to reduce the risk, while shareholders want to reasonably maximize profits. Managers are even more risky with profit maximization, since their own careers are based on the ability to turn profits to then show the board. The fact that modern corporations are based on these relations creates costs that can each group is trying to control the other. Costs. One of the major insights of agency theory is the concept of cost of maintaining the division of labor among credit holders, shareholders, and managers. Managers have an advantage of information since they know the firm close up. They can use this to enhance their own reputation at the expense of shareholders. Limiting the control of managers itself contains costs, such as reduced profit. While profit seeking in risky ventures might alienate banks and other financial institutions, monitoring and limiting managers itself contains sometimes substantial cost to the firm. Significance. The agency model of corporate governance holds that firms are basically units of conflict rather than unitary, profit-seeking machines. This conflict is not aberrant but built directly into the structure of modern corporations. Effects. It is possible, if one accepts the premises of agency theory, the corporations are actually group of connected fiefs. Each fief has its own specific interest and culture and views the purpose of the firm differently. In analyzing the functions of a corporation, one can assume that managers will behave in a way to maximize their own profit and reputation, even at the expense of shareholders. One might even understand the manager's role as one of the institutionalized deceit, where the asymmetry of knowledge permits managers to operate with almost total independence. Let's discuss second theory, which is stewardship theory. Introduction. Stewardship theory argue that the managers or executives of a company are stewards of their owners, and both groups share common goal. Davis, Scorman, and Donaldson, 1997. Therefore, the board should not be too controlling, as agency theory would suggest. The board should play a supportive role by empowering executives and in turn increase the potential for higher performance. Henry, 2002, Shen, 2003. Stewardship theory argues for relationship between board and executives that involves training, monitoring, and shared decision making. Shen, 2003, Sundarmurthy and Lewis, 2003. Most theories of corporate governance use personal self-interest as a starting point. Stewardship theory, however, rejects self-interest. Agency theory begins from self-interested behavior and rests on dealing with the cost inherent in separating ownership from control. Managers are assumed to work to improve their own position, while the board seeks to control managers and hence close the gap between the two structures. Motivation. For stewardship theory, managers seek other ends besides financial ones. These include the sense of worth, altruism, a good reputation, a job well done, a feeling of satisfaction and sense of purpose. The stewardship theory holds that managers inherently seek to do good job, maximize company's profit, and bring good returns to stakeholders. They do not necessarily do this for their own financial interest, but because they feel strong duty to the firm. Identification. Agency and stewardship theories begin from two different premises. The basic agency problem revolves around individuals considering themselves only as individuals, without any other meaningful achievements. However, stewardship theory holds that individuals in management position do not primarily consider themselves as isolated individuals. Instead, they consider themselves part of the firm. Managers, according to stewardship theory, merge their ego and sense of worth with the reputation of the firm. Policies. If a firm adopts a stewardship mode of governance, certain policies naturally follow. Firms will spell out in detail the roles and expectations of managers. These expectations will be highly goal-oriented and designed to evoke the manager's sense of ability and worth. Stewardship theory advocates managers who are free to pursue their own goals. It naturally follows from this that managers are naturally company men who will put their firm ahead of their own ends. Freedom will be used for the good of the firm. Consequences. The consequences of stewardship theory revolve around the sense that the individualistic agency theory is overdrawn. Trust and all other things being equal is justified between managers and board members. In situations where the CEO is not the chairman of the board can rest assured that long-term CEO will seek primarily to be a good manager, not a rich man. Alternatively, having a CEO who is also chairman is not a problem, since there is no good reason that he will use that position to enrich himself at the expense of the firm. Put differently, stewardship theory holds that managers do want to be richly rewarded for their efforts, but that no managers want to be at the expense of the firm. Now we will discuss resource dependency theory. The resource dependency theory focuses on the role of directors in providing access to resources needed by the firm. It states that directors play an important role in providing and securing essential resources to an organization through their linkages to the external environment. The provision of resources enhance organizational functioning, firm's performance, and its survival. The directors being resources to the firm such as information, skills, access to key constituents such as suppliers, buyers, public policy makers, social groups, as well as legitimacy. Directors can be classified into 4 categories of insiders, business experts, support specialists, and community influentials. Next theory is stakeholder theory. Stakeholder theory incorporated the accountability of management to a broad range of stakeholders. It states that managers in organizations have a network of relationship to serve. This includes the suppliers, employees, and business partners. The theory focuses on managerial decision making, and interests of all stakeholders have intrinsic value, and no set of interests is assumed to dominate the others. Next theory is transaction cost theory. Transaction cost theory states that a company has number of contracts within the company itself or with market through which it creates value for the company. There is cost associated with each contract with external party. Such cost is called transaction cost. If transaction cost of using the market is higher, the company would undertake that transaction itself. Transaction cost economics is understood as alternative modes of organizing transactions, governance structures such as markets, hybrid firms, and bureaus that minimize transaction costs. Williamson, 1979. Transaction cost theory, Williamson, 1979-1986, posits that the optimum organization structure is one that achieves economic efficiency by minimizing the cost of exchange. The theory suggests that each type of transaction produces coordination cost of monitoring, controlling, and managing transactions. Williamson has defined transaction costs broadly as the cost of running the economic system of firms. He has argued that such costs are to be distinguished from production cost, and that a decision maker can make a choice to use a firm's structure or source from the market by comparing transaction costs with internal production costs. Thus, cost is the primary determinant of such a decision. Now we will discuss the last theory called as political theory. Political theory brings the approach of developing voting support from the shareholders rather by purchasing voting power. It highlights the allocation of corporate power, profit, and privileges are determined via the governments. Political theory refers to the political influence in the governance structure of companies evidenced by the participation of the government in the capital of companies or laws adopted by political structure, which have significant influence on corporate governance. The political model emphasizes the governmental favors on corporate decision-making activities related to the distribution of corporate power, profits or various benefits. Abdullah and Valentin, 2009. Regarding dividend policy, for example, there may be legal rules that give special importance of dividends as a potential tool for solving possible agency problems related to hold shares. In this respect, countries such as Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Greece and Venezuela make mandatory dividend provisions. In other countries, the role of legal environment is more subtle. Thus, in the UK, there have been formed several bodies that make recommendations for improving corporate governance practice used by the board of directors. Illina, 2008. The political model of corporate governance can have a huge influence on the development of corporate governance. We can mention the case of a communist or the former communist countries which are still struggling to emerge from political influence. The case of Romania is an illustrative example in this regard. Although being a former communist country for more than 20 years, it still faces major problems related to government shareholding in the government structure of the Romanian companies. Mark Mobis, executive chairman of Templeton Emerging Market Group, recently stated, September 2012, that the reason for investors not coming in Romania is the jam in the profitability recorded by the companies with government companies, stressing the need that the government should bring more companies on the market. Further, Mobis stressed that these companies would become attractive to local and foreign investors only if a change will be produced in the government system and the new government's model will be imposed. Political manifestation of corporate governance structures concern the governments from many countries towards drawing the framework of the separation between power and control. This is all for today. Hope you have understood the chapter. So, we will meet you in the second part of the corporate governance. Till then, take care. Goodbye.